Discover the story where reality meets the future. Violeta Digital by Alberto Hill. Beyond the pages.
Imagine sitting in your own home. The city is dead quiet outside your window. And suddenly, your most secure, deeply encrypted comms channel is wiped completely clean. Just gone. And the only thing left burning on the screen is this single, ominous phrase. Welcome to the flame, Alberto. That's exactly what was waiting for me. This isn't some Hollywood science fiction script. This is my reality. And it's the start of the real-world cybersecurity nightmare we're unpacking today. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, I'm taking you through the tech noir reality of Violeta Digital, a novella of code and conscience. We're stepping right back into the digital shadows of my life. So, there I was, late at night, right after that chilling message dropped. My whole world basically shattered. And look, I didn't get excited. I didn't think it was a fun puzzle. My very first instinct was sheer, absolute panic, followed instantly by risk mitigation. I was obsessively checking firewalls, verifying encryption keys, running every diagnostic I had, because when you know exactly how dangerous the digital world really is, you don't take chances.
Which brings us to the inciting silence, the agonizing 48-hour wait.
Because after that message, nothing. Complete radio silence from whoever sent it. And let me tell you, those 48 hours were torture. I was essentially forced to live a double life. At 0 hours, my comms get wiped. By hour 24, I'm forcing myself to maintain this perfectly calm professional face, diligently working on complex blockchain algorithms for my decentralized finance clients. I was even recording my cybersecurity podcast, right? Using my steady professorial voice. But off camera? Privately? I was utterly consumed by hypervigilant paranoia. Every single shadow made me jump. You're probably wondering why I was so terrified. Well, it ties directly to my real-world trauma. I hold the lovely title of being the first hacker in Uruguay to do prison time for a computer crime. A crime I was completely acquitted of, by the way, but only after an 8-year legal nightmare. In my memoir about the whole ordeal, the word sad pops up 22 times. I can still smell the damp concrete, the stale smoke, that feeling of absolute crushing helplessness. So my gut terror wasn't just about a potential hack. I was terrified that this mysterious message was a police honeypot, a trap specifically designed to frame me and drag me kicking and screaming back to that hellish prison cell. Then the satellite dead drop, a literal masterclass in tradecraft. After 2 days, the silence finally breaks, and the way they did it, it was a technical flex so massive I actually had to give them my grudging respect. It wasn't an encrypted email or a burner text. The message was hidden inside a live weather satellite stream. Let that sink in for a second. They were weaving altered data packets right into orbital infrastructure. It's an obscure, incredibly complex maneuver. These guys weren't amateurs. They were ghosts. And hidden in that data stream were decrypted geographic coordinates, pointing me straight to a physical dead drop. And that meant I had to leave my digital fortress. I had to go outside. Under a completely moonless night, I headed down to Ciudad Vieja, the oldest part of Montevideo. I was absolutely terrified of being watched, so I used every extreme counter-surveillance trick I knew. I varied my route, I swapped transport, I ducked into the shadows of those centuries-old cobblestone streets just checking for tails. And finally, right there, wedged behind a loose stone in an ancient wall, I found it. A single, completely featureless USB drive.
Air-gapped truths. Time for decrypting La Llama Violeta.
I practically ran back to my office. My heart is pounding out of my chest, and I'm just staring at this little piece of plastic and silicon. But you don't survive in my line of work by just plugging random USBs into your main network. That is suicide. So, I followed a strict zero-trust protocol. First, I booted up an air-gapped burner laptop, a machine completely physically isolated from the internet so no malware could possibly spread. And then the kicker, the decryption key wasn't some alphanumeric password. It was a cipher, and it was derived from the work of a 19th century Uruguayan revolutionary poet. That brilliant little detail told me this group had deep historical roots. Once I broke the cipher, I opened the drive, and I read the manifesto of a collective calling themselves La Llama Violeta, the Violet Flame. Their manifesto was intense. It basically argued that in our modern age, direct digital action isn't just an option, it's a moral imperative. They claimed they were targeting massive state corruption that was driving a severe environmental crisis here in Uruguay. Specifically, they pointed to the awful water shortages in Montevideo, rallying around the protest chant, No es sequía, is saqueo. It's not drought, it's plunder. They alleged they had hard, verifiable proof of toxic cover-ups and rigged government contracts involving the controversial UPM pulp mill. Ghosts in the machine. The digital confrontation. They didn't just dump a manifesto on me and run. The USB also held a flawless, totally custom-built encrypted chat application. An invitation to talk. So I fired it up. I tried searching the dark web for them beforehand. By the way, nothing. Absolute ghosts. But when I messaged them, we immediately collided ideologically. You have their radical mission, exposing systemic plunder through illegal data leaks. And then you have my personal motto, the thing I've built my life around. Human knowledge belongs to the world. They were essentially weaponizing my own ethics against me. I had to ask them, how do you ensure your flame illuminates rather than merely burns? This put me in the most agonizing psychological vice you can imagine. It was literally tearing me in two. On one side, the sheer blinding terror of going back to prison. If I got caught helping them, I was looking at a 12-year sentence for cyberterrorism, no question. But on the other side, this heavy, inescapable moral obligation. Because if I really believe that knowledge belongs to the world, and I'm sitting there holding undeniable proof of environmental plunder that's actively hurting my neighbors, how could I possibly just walk away? And they knew. They knew exactly how to play me. In the chat, they hit me with this devastatingly clever line. You have first-hand knowledge of the enemy. They didn't ignore my trauma at all. They leaned right into it. They framed my greatest vulnerability, my brutal, unfair experience with the justice system, as the exact reason I was uniquely qualified to help them. They were basically telling me, Alberto, your past wasn't just suffering, it was training. Which leads us to the final rendezvous, stepping into the flame. The digital chat hit a wall. These ghosts in the machine demanded a face-to-face meeting. It was time to step out from behind the firewall. I agreed, but I fully prepared for the worst. I actually wrote a sealed letter for my father and left it on my desk, a grim just-in-case-I-disappear note. From there, they sent me on this nerve-wracking, winding path of physical tradecraft just to test my resolve and shake off any surveillance. I had to buy a very specific newspaper at a kiosk, find a coded message slipped inside a philosophy book at the library, and then, finally, wait alone in the fading light of a dark, completely deserted park. Suddenly, a figure stepped out of the shadows. I was bracing for some hulking operative, but it was just a calm, resolute woman. She introduced herself as Sophia, and she didn't mince words. She warned me right then and there that the truth is a dangerous commodity, and the cost for it can be unbelievably high. And I just stood there in the dark. I was weighing the safety of this quiet, rebuilt life I'd scraped together against this screaming call of my conscience. I hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. And then I said, "Lead the way, Sophia." And I stepped fully into the unknown. The castle paradox, the thematic takeaway. That incredibly tense climax closes the chapter. But I want to pull back the curtain for a second on the real-world framework driving this story. It's what the author calls the castle paradox, explored across two sibling books. Violeta Digital represents the outsider path. The method? Throwing rocks from the outside, using hacktivism and data leaks. The upside is you keep your moral purity, but the huge risk is catastrophic retaliation and, well, a prison cell. Conversely, the other book, The People's Code, explores the insider path. That's about rebuilding the castle from the inside as an architect, taking on formal state roles. It offers a chance at real systemic reform, but you risk the slow, agonizing death of your ideals through bureaucratic friction and gradual co-optation. It's a brilliant, brutal breakdown of the impossible choices you face when you try to fix a broken system. And that brings us to the core of this whole explainer. Because this story, it isn't just about the code. It is entirely about conscience. So I want to leave you with a question, and I want you to really think about it. If you possessed a unique, elite skill set, and you stumbled upon undeniable proof of a systemic cover-up that was actively hurting your community, but acting on it meant risking your reputation, your safety, and potentially your freedom, would you step into the flame? Thank you for exploring my story with me today. Stay safe and keep questioning the shadows.
Welcome to our Violeta Digital Explainer. System Override Engaged. We're opening the dossier on hacktivist collective La Llama Violeta.
We're decrypting files on a system rotting from the inside out. The target? A massive corruption scandal, Aguagate.
The crisis is absolutely lethal. Toxic runoff is poisoning Montevideo's water supply,
all hidden by a massive state cover-up. But people know the truth. The streets are echoing with one outcry. It's not a drought, it's plunder. Enter La Llama Violeta. They're deeply flawed individuals buckling under the crushing pressure of an active state manhunt.
Let's look at Alberto. He's a brilliant digital forensics expert, heavily traumatized by a past wrongful conviction.
He's incredibly risk-averse. He handles flawless system verification, complex cryptographic architecture, and super rigorous risk management.
Despite his past trauma, Alberto is driven by one powerful motto: human knowledge belongs to the world.
Next up is Sophia, the visionary coder. Calm, collected, and driven by pure, unyielding idealism. She weaves complex multi-layer encryption, coordinates network exfiltration, and establishes highly secure satellite links for the team. Crucially, she's the sole custodian of the Omega Drop, the group's ultimate digital failsafe against the state.
Meet Elena, the strategist. She's a pragmatic organizer and former investigative journalist who was previously silenced by authorities.
Her weapons? Open-source intelligence, strict data sanitization, and creating digestible public infographics to expose the corruption.
She's essentially the keeper of their conscience, making sure their leaks spark systemic justice, not just pure chaos.
Finally, we have Mateo, the wild card. As their youngest infrastructure engineer, he's bursting with fragile, energetic enthusiasm.
He completely manages the front line: social engineering, complex VPN cascading, Tor routing, and rapid automated bot dissemination.
But under the massive pressure of a state manhunt, his youthful energy threatens to collapse into acute paranoia. Everything collides when the state's narrative framing them as cyber-terrorists clashes directly with the Omega Drop failsafe. Wrapping up this explainer, I gotta ask, if the system violently failed you, would you step into the flame?